Hi, check your bulk?
Same place it always is. Bobbie and Lynn are in the back.
Thanks.
Your deck enjoys that, letting people know what it's doing.
That's true for me as a human being and as a deck builder. I almost insist on being what you see is what you get in as many aspects as I can. So I really like being predicted. I don't know why. I know that's not great for like card games, but since there's 4 players, I feel like not everybody has to be deceptive. Not everybody has to be hiding their hand. I like to lessen the mystery. I like to my decks like to be what you see is what you get, essentially.
Sure. I think that definitely does a good job of removing some of the, mental game that usually comes with Magic. A lot of times people are so in their head about the action that they're taking and what could be in other people's hands and what could possibly happen instead of just taking action. And I think having someone that has taken action as always gives something someone can bounce off of or make decisions based off of.
So I was curious, what does this string of budget brews you've been up to? What does it say about you? What inspires you to brew the budget style?
I'm pretty sure it's some sort of hipsterish feeling inside me. I was playing a game last night with Colin O'Clock for a little brew. We had our game. There was this, just this idea of like these cards that we're looking at right now are not good enough for most commander decks. They're just not, they're cool, yep. But they're so niche, or they fit this kind of moment. The card, I want this experience to happen in EDH, that's why I put this card in the deck. I want to feel powerful wielding this
Holy Grail.
slightly nerdy, slightly nerdy, slightly different, slightly hipster approach to the problem solving. So I like budget brews for that. I get to see a bunch of these cards. I get to play a bunch of stuff that wouldn't normally fit. And, you still get to, say, if you set a $50 limit, it's a resource. It's almost like a diverting power. And by having unlimited power, it's difficult sometimes to know what's the right sort of flavor for it. But when you have like a limited power, now that your deck needs a change. It's got to be something different. There's a challenge to it in the sense of like, well, if I can't play every popular aristocrat effect, then I got to come up with some alternative ways to, to put pressure on the game. And so sometimes new avenues of approach appear and new metagames, one might say, just different systems can appear in that. There's just something fun about the resourcefulness that comes from it. My process is define it in Moxfield and then build it in what I can in paper. So some of the first few games I play with it are even with cards that I don't want to play, but I'm like, well, that's what I've got. Sometimes I order cards to fill in, but usually sometimes new things emerge, like kind of fun experiences and memorable moments happen because of the kind of strangeness of allowing the limitation of my resources to promote that development. I like having different solutions. I like also not seeing the same solution over and over again. I'm using Necropotence in one deck, but I'm using Necrologia in another deck. If there was no limits to your power, either through like your financial ability to pay for everything or your printer's ability to pay for everything, if that limitation isn't there, ultimately it's very easy to want to scale up on power, to like reach for the highest heights, to like grab the most efficient mana value, most game action in creating cards that you could have. And by choosing a limit on that power, either, one deck, should I put an Altar of Dementia in the deck or should I put in Imperial Recruiter? So I have this choice of like, do I put in a win or a combo, or do I put in a fetch card that's really good that could line up my combo, like build my board?
I think redundancy is a huge part of high power, and I think a really cool part of lower power is kind of the lack of redundancy, is kind of the old school, like, you don't know what you're going to draw. You don't know what's coming up because you don't have the tutors to get you the pieces you want every single time. You don't have like the best card draw to get you those pieces every single time.
I put together a deck that was so hipster based on some finding of like, you need to pick a commander that is on the lowest, like the bottom rank commanders in the commander ranking. And I picked Zahid, Jinn of the Lamp, and put together a deck that was no card over $1. But within that combo, there was still an infinite turn combo. I was able to bring out the Magistrate Scepter. I had a little core tapper be able to put a little charge counter on it, and it can put its own charge counter. So I got to take not infinite turns, but I got to take enough turns.
I see a couple extra turns, and I'm like, okay. I see infinite turns. I'm like, boo.
That deck can still almost do infinite. I mean, if you put enough things out that can put a charge counter on it every turn, you essentially have infinite turns. But I felt like there was no pain on my conscience, no weight on my conscience because of it being a budget brew.
If a player goes infinite, I'm just like, I might roll my eyes a little bit, but it's fine. But when that player tells me I would infinite with $50, I'm like, okay, you earned that. I understand. I'm gonna give you that one. You mentioned earlier when you that there's like a holy grail of plays. Is I've got Godzilla, King of the Monsters, who has 7 power. And what I'd love to do is this holy grail. I'll play Assault Strobe, which is a 1-mana sorcery, dirt cheap, gives a creature double strike. And then I like to play Relentless Fury, which is a 2-mana dirt cheap instant that doubles the power of a creature. And then I like to go to combat with that, right? And we'll send in the double strike, double power for massive damage. Bam, bam, bam. It's got trample. It does a ton of damage. Once that's all done, we're not done because we're going to cast Fling. We're going to hurl the double powered massive monster. There's other ways to give it double power. There's also choose your weapon. So I can put choose your weapon on top of the Relentless Fury to double the power 2 times and give the creature double strike and send it in. Completely vulnerable to a Swords to Plowshares every time, but that doesn't matter because I just want the Holy Grail play. I just want to go for it.
I was just thinking about that. That's like a lot of cards. You get it. That's a holy grail for sure. Because that's like
it is a holy grail. Exactly.
3 cards in your hand, maybe 4 cards in your hand that have to give you the answer that you're like the situation you're providing. It makes sense though. You traded me that dragon deck, and the dragon deck has that. It has Assault Strobe in there. It has the same kind of setup to do with the fling, trying to win with the combo there. So it sounds like you have a type. I know that I've seen your decks. Your decks like to have that set up, regardless of budget or not budget. It sounds like you want that all the time. That's your just holy grail of Magic, perhaps.
I like that a lot. I like the very first thing you said was something about it makes you hip. It feels hip. It feels like
you're a hipster,
like a hipster kind of thing. And I relate. It is totally hipster. I relate to that on a very fundamental level. I like the Eldrazi are famous in Magic the Gathering, the Eldrazi gods. And I was like, you know what? Everyone knows about the Eldrazi, like the Eldrazi gods. But what about the little jerkbag Eldrazi, the little piece of crap Eldrazi that were printed to oblivion that no one plays with? And I was like, I want to use those Eldrazi. I want to use the hipster Eldrazi, the smothering abomination, and like the little, the dirtbag Eldrazi. Awakening Zone is a very cheap Eldrazi card that people cut. I don't want to cut it. I want my little dirt bags.
That's the card that gives you Eldrazi little snackums, right? During your upkeep.
I just want the Eldrazi that I can pick out of the bag, and
it's like little poppers, little Eldrazi poppers. Bobbie-Christine wants to eat little Eldrazi poppers.
I want to go to Sonic, roll up to the Sonic window and say, I want popcorn Eldrazi, and they'll hook me up.
We're talking a little bit about what your deck says about you. There's the Faerie Conclave podcast, which you have recorded for, I have recorded for, where they spend a lot of time talking about decks. How was your experience? What would you say about Faerie Conclave?
So I talked about my Karth the Lion Golgari Planeswalker deck for about 2 hours straight. They gave me the space to be as much of a nerd as I wanted about it.
And we came back from CommandFest Bellevue. Birds of Paradise raised a little over $1,300.
Yes,
it was amazing.
Absolutely.
And big thanks, of course, to Deanna, Miss Eldridge, who was doing the remote stream. The rest of us were on the ground, running around, getting a few games in with our Jumpstart packs and everything like that with some of the individuals that came to see us and that were new to the space and wanted to hang out, and just saw a colorful, shiny table and a bunch of friendly masked faces, inviting them over.
As Birds of Paradise, as a unit, over the weekend, we raised $1,300 roughly, and Deanna, Miss Eldridge, was over 1,000 of that. So
Yeah.
She absolutely deserves incredible praise. And also, she has a nice project coming up with Adam the Gathering. They have the Home of the Host podcast. Episode 1 is not yet released, but we are eagerly looking forward to that.
I built a white deck recently. And when I was building that white deck, I thought, hey, I'm going to play all new. I'm going to be totally different. I essentially, though, started building the same deck. Like, I found cards that were equivalent because I was like, I love Crypt Breaker. So then I was like, ooh, this card lets me spend some mana and discard a card to generate a creature. That's so interesting. Which was, it's pretty much the same thing, just with a different color on it. And I really just traded the aesthetic.
You can't escape discard.
I can't escape discard. So discard, if a deck is mine, it's probably got discard in it. That means like I've got to play Ill-Gotten Gains in every one of my decks. Ill-Gotten Gains, 2 black. You exile the card after you cast it, but each player discards their hand and returns up to 3 cards from their graveyard to their hand. I love playing this card, especially because everybody gets to look at the game we just played. And we look at the game we just played and everyone pulls out their favorites. You know what I mean? They're like, I remember when I cast this in the game. And so this is one of these cards that I think what I love about it is it does provide this kind of reflective moment in the game. People look at cards and then you get to hear what their favorites were that they played or whatever they could choose.
Ill-Gotten Gains is an archetype of card that I like to refer to as fun for the whole family.
Oh, really?
And I adore these kind of cards. Yep, just gather the kids, get the kids, get the grandparents, come on down to shenanigans. We have Ill-Gotten Gains. Everyone's going to get what they like. We've got Hunted Wumpuses. We've got Tempting Worms. Fun for the whole family. Yeah, Hunted Wumpus is
isn't that everyone gets to play cards?
Yeah, it's 4 mana for a 6/6, which is pretty good, but there is a tremendous downside when Hunted Wumpus enters the battlefield that each opponent gets to put a creature from their hand directly into play. So this is like my version of fun for the whole family. And it's also leans into how I like to have very few questions, very few mystery, very upfront, like this is what's happening kind of deal. And I kind of force my opponents to also be completely upfront with what they've got going on. They're like, well, I mean, I can't not play this thing for free. If what they put out with the Hunted Wumpus is friendly, I'll be friendly. If what they put out the Hunted Wumpus is not friendly, I will turn it into a tree.
Hunted Wumpus is like, like, sorry I butt dialed you. I'm sorry.
I actually did not mean to call you. I know this is awkward. But...
Right. Well, I mean, when a Praetor hits the battlefield or something like that, you know what I mean? Like Vorinclex hits the battlefield and Wumpus is like, boo, boo, boo. Sorry about that. I thought it was going to be more fun for the whole family, but then I realized some people don't know how to have fun. So I'm going to take away the fun and I'll spend my efforts elsewhere. Yep. So I have found that. Yeah. I appreciate the Hunted Wumpus is a style, but there's definitely an answer. It sounds like you're not just playing it and just being like, it's fun. You're like, we're taking care of the problems. You are specifically have in your arms, like in the event that someone has stepped out of line of what you've deemed fun, you will remove it from the battlefield. Like Hellish Norn, I'm sorry, you are a frog and you cannot be here.
Fun for the whole family, and I decide what's fun.
Oh, all right. Wow. All right, Mom. I still cast in a few of my decks, which is fun for the whole family. Clear the land for 2 and a green. It's a sorcery. Each player reveals the top 5 cards of his or her library or their library and puts into play tapped all lands revealed this way and removes the rest from the game. So this card gives everybody the top 5. And if you needed lands, you would get lands. You help out players that are a little low on mana. It kind of supercharges the game. I've gotten into this card, and it's definitely one of those, this is a card that actually I've been playing now, and I haven't been like, let's stack the deck, other than like, I know my deck has 40 lands. This one feels fun for the whole family in the same way we talked about Veteran Explorer.
I don't know if you picked this intentionally, but there is a Hunted Wumpus directly on that card.
Yeah, there is.
I love it. I love that.
Domesticate it.
He's like this icon.
Yeah. How does Gorex the Tomb Shell? How does that? What does that say about you, Bobbie-Christine? Because I know I have my own relationship with Gorex, but I'd love to know about what Gorex says about you.
Gorex says that I am a low tier main. And this is something from fighting games. Being a low tier main is something I've always done in my history of fighting games. I play Ganondorf in Super Smash Brothers, who is arguably the worst character in the game, but I put all of my heart and all of my gumption into making that dude work, and I do. I am able to make him work in a lot of situations. And Gorex the Tomb Shell is a zombie turtle who's a slow, sludgy, not very optimized, low tier, essentially, character, in my opinion. And that draws me to him, and it makes him a soft spot in my heart. That's why Gorex is special to me, because it feeds into my my hipster feelings, my feeling of like, I took you out with with something that's not that good, and I don't know, there's something extra that feels a little satisfying or rewarding when I take a low tier character like Gorex or Ganondorf and I manage to defeat people with them.
I have identity problems, as I mentioned before, where I am essentially playing the same deck over and over again. I essentially started looking for similar effects that I had in Black, right? I love the edict effects or sacrifice effects. I don't play them all the time, but I do enjoy a little fleshbag marauder, you know what I mean? And so I found this card, Tariff, 1 and a white, sorcery. Each player sacrifices the creature they control with the highest mana value unless they pay the creature's mana cost. If 2 or more creatures a player control are tied, then the player that, controls the creatures chooses. But, ooh, it just felt real juicy.
That's so cool.
You got to be prepared to pay for your biggest creature. You cast Tariff, rebuy back your Sarah Angel, and then they can't rebuy back. Like, do you really love your Mamoni Jin? Do you really love it?
I mentioned Assault Strobe earlier so that I could leave this as my special little pick for the Holy Grail, the two-handed axe with the double whammy, with the granting the double strike on an adventure and the doubling of the power on attack. It's just everything. It's the Holy Grail in a card. Beautifully designed card. And oh my gosh, you put Xenagos in my mind, and I now realize it's Xenagos and Unleash Faerie. And all right, we don't have to go down the whole list, but you get it.
Yeah. You
love the unnatural growth.
Yeah, you enjoy like things getting multiple size larger. So you're enjoying the exponential growth. Exponential growth is a fun growth. Exponential growth is why people love to play Magic sometimes, because you're like, now I exponentially grow squirrels. So if a deck says something about you, Bobbie-Christine, what will people learn about you at the summit? Recently, you announced that you're going to be heading to the summit this November.
Yes.
You're hoping people will sign up, buy tickets, and then use your code.
Absolutely. My code is, you'll never guess it, Bobbie. So please use that code at checkout at MTG Summit. What I want to show people is I think that starting at 40 life is way too damn high. So at MTG Summit, when I do sit down for some games, I want to rapid fire them. I want to get as many games as possible while still feeling like we have the essence of a Commander game. So I think I intend to start every game at 25, maybe 30 life, just to shave off a good chunk of the game if possible. I want to play my straightforward decks with less life so that we can just get to the point. I kind of want to make the Commander game feel more like a 1v1 if possible, in the sense that it's just more, this is what I'm doing, back, forth, and here is the conclusion of the game. And yay, we did it. I very graciously awarded myself the Agro Queen of Commander, and I'm owning that.
Queen of Commander. The Agro Queen of Commander, Her Majesty presides. And so the Agro Queen of Commander would probably... Check Your Bulk is a Bobbie-Christine and Lynn Frank production, where we share a few of our favorite picks and laughs. Find Bobbie-Christine on Twitter and Twitch. Find Lynn Frank on Twitter. Customer was Katie Karloff, and the clerk was Bert. Thank you for listening to Check Your Bulk. Bobbie-Christine and Lynn Frank at BOBBIECHRISTXNE at LYNNVFRANK.